committee of the whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. Our first action items are to consider the minutes of the July 7th, 2025 and September 2nd, 2025 meetings.
I move for approval.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those minutes are approved. Okay, next up we have the council administrator's report.
Good evening, councilors. Good afternoon. There is no report. I just ask that you review the item I put in front of you relative to the gallery to confirm your availability. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to our next item, which is we requested, as you know, in this past budget, the council requested and the mayor included additional funding for the Department of Transportation relative to traffic calming. And so we wanted to have the folks from BDOT come and talk to us about their plans for moving traffic calming forward with the additional resources and hopefully dealing with some of the backlog of requests.
Yeah, Mr. President, so we'll bring up James Fowler to
Okay.
give a presentation. Just want to be mindful of the email that we sent about the memo from BDOT, just so if you have any more questions outside of that, Mr. Fowler will be able to address those concerns. That's the one that's.
Oh, yeah, Ms. Camila's handing that out, so you may not have to hand the memo out, but. So, good afternoon. So again, my name is James Fowler. I serve as the director of the city's Department of Transportation. And there's a couple documents that Camila handed out. One of them is a copy of that memo. I was going to step through just a couple of highlights from that. Didn't necessarily want to talk through all of it, but just a couple of things. So one, since the inception of the program, we have now placed speed cushions on 41 streets. We estimate that that puts us at over 500 cushion devices citywide. And just for reference, when we started this program, we had no speed humps, and I think Mountain Brook had one speed bump, and then Homewood had, I think, 6 speed bumps, and there may have been a few others around the regions, but we were getting beaten up by citizens saying, you know, these other jurisdictions allow them, and so why doesn't Birmingham? And so now we have over 500 citywide. So we have scaled up significantly, and I'm continue to be grateful to our partners in the fire department who are probably the most impacted by this program. So, but there's some perspective on that. Also, for reference, we don't just consider speed cushions in the traffic calming conversation. I think that's how the public thinks of them. The public, candidly, they think about speed cushions and stop signs. That's what they think about. And we really don't think about stop signs as traffic calming. They're kind of in that conversation, but a stop sign itself is not necessarily intended for traffic calming. So, but we've, on other streets, about 80 streets, have made other adjustments with striping signage, radar signage, stop signs, in some cases when appropriate. Another device called a rapid rectangular flashing beacon, which we want to do a lot more of those to help pedestrians cross, and flex posts. So a whole bunch of other considerations. In our queue, as of today, there's over 800 requests, so it's been extremely popular, and it continues to be popular. We're going to talk about how we can better meter that going forward and kind of what to do with that queue going forward. I did list out in here steps that, you know, as an overview of our process. I won't step through that, but it's there for reference. But I did want to point out a few of the observations that I made in here. So one of them is that a lot of the requests don't meet our initial criteria, and we do decline those requests. So if the speed limit on a road is 30 miles per hour and the average speed is 28 miles an hour, well, you know, I get the concern, but we'll decline those requests. And as you can imagine, people are very frustrated when, you know, they have this concern, but we tell them that it doesn't meet the criteria. So, but we do have a lot of those conversations, and you know, y'all may or may not necessarily see all of those or hear about those, but we try to stick to our criteria as much as we can. So, many of the requesters, so there's a couple of bottlenecks in our process, one or two on our end, and then one or two on the public side. One of the biggest ones is the petition step. As you guys may have heard from constituents, not everybody likes the speed cushions, certainly not at first. So a lot of people are afraid of them, so that's why we have that petition step. Other cities that we've modeled our program after have a similar process to that. So we have been requiring that, but that is a spot where when we send that out to the requester, a lot of times we just never get that back. And it is a bit of work on their end for sure to have to go through and get their neighbors to sign off on that petition. But that's been a big slowdown in our process. And we'll talk about a recommendation for how to streamline that a little bit better. Also, one of the bottlenecks is just the collection of speed data. So we manually send staff out with pneumatic tubes that we've only got so much capacity each week to collect data. And so with a backlog of 800 streets, that's a bit of a process bottleneck for us as well. So we have a recommendation for how to speed that up. Also, currently, anybody can submit a request. That's how we got started. That has exploded, so with all the requests. So we think we need to rein that in a little bit as well in terms of where those requests can come from and how they get vetted before they get to us. So we have a recommendation for that. We do receive probably more requests for all-way stops than we do for speed cushions. So quite often, people reach out to us and they say, they're speeding on my street, we need to put a stop sign, you know, X. We reject more requests for stop signs than we approve. So we have added some stop signs around when appropriate. And, you know, an example is we made an always stop on Haygood Street, kind of midway up the street there's a commercial center there with the Saw's Juke Joint. That was kind of a logical place that fit, you know, and the context worked, but there were other streets along there which people have suggested, which we have declined. So that's characteristic citywide. We've tried to be very judicious about where those make sense and where they don't. There's a process, and we do look at data. We try very hard not to overuse them because that leads to people running those stop signs. So just know we deny more of those requests than we approve. So. Lastly, so contractor installations, we did go this past fiscal year with, we started off with 10 streets. That is just now wrapping up. That has gone really well, so we want to continue that and expand that going forward with it, kind of a few lessons learned along the way, but that's one of the ways that we want to scale up our operations. And just in terms of procurement, we're trying to procure ahead so that we keep plenty of devices in stock and we can keep moving quickly with the program. So in terms of our policy reforms, I think this is the key part that will allow us to scale up our operations and allow a lot of those cases to hopefully be unlocked and move forward. One is we think that going forward, requests should come from neighborhood officers primarily. That allows for a couple of things, but one, it ensures that, you know, there's some support there for it. And then at the end of the process, we intend to keep the request to ask the neighborhood to pay for half of the cost of the devices. So we cover the cost of installation, and we would cover the cost of half of those devices. We cover the full cost of things like stop signs and striping and things like that. But for the speed cushions, we have asked that the neighborhood pay for half that cost. So asking the neighborhood to vote on a street at the front end ensures that we don't get through the whole process and then get to the back end, and then the neighborhood says, well, this isn't a priority for us, which we've seen in a couple of cases that were really, in a couple of cases, good streets that I think we would probably recommend having speed cushions on, but the neighborhood, for one reason or another, decided to not prioritize that. We also want to put a moratorium temporarily, just a pause on new requests. And I think this conversation is kind of the last stop before we publish that. But pause on that, and then we will work with community resources and our resource officers to put that word out. And then I think we will work with neighborhood representatives to kind of identify priorities within our current queue and kind of start there. And as we work through a few of those cases, then the next bullet point on here is to move towards a more seasonal application period where neighborhoods can maybe twice a year submit their requests for traffic calming. And so we could put together a framework for how to do that. But probably about twice a year, ask neighborhoods to submit their preferences. And then lastly, one of the sheets that we handed out is just some information that we put together on a software that we're intending to purchase. It's a really powerful tool. At first, it sounds pretty expensive, but then when you learn about what it can do, it's actually a really great investment, we feel. It's a software called Urban SDK, and it is essentially a citywide online interactive map that uses cell phone data to give us very up-to-date speed data on streets. So you can just click on a street and it pulls up speed and volume data, and it has already programmed in there the speed limits of the streets. So it can quickly allow you to see where your priority streets are. So that's useful for us. That'll unlock a lot of capacity in our department, but it's also useful for the police department. So we would get multiple seats for that, so we could share that with our partners in the police department, and they can use that for traffic enforcement, which we think would be useful as well. So that's about $50,000 a year, but we think that is well worth it just based on everything that it will allow us to do. So that's a really quick overview, so I'll pause there. And then at the end of this conversation, I did have one note about an unrelated project, but just we have a requirement to announce it to City Council. So.
Council Williams.
Thank you. So this sounds like it's really cool. It's just to understand, it'll actually let you know based on cellular data when you have a street that is, you got people speeding, like a large number of people are speeding.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. On the speed cushions, traffic calming discussion, I think it's a great idea to have 2 times a year. One request I have for the administration is that you guys share with the council districts, or at least my district, who's asking for what in District 2, because, all neighborhood associations look very different. Some of them, the neighborhood officers go on their own path and request things that they want themselves and no one else wants. So I kind of want to be able to understand what data is actually coming from my neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think, and not to cut you off, but I didn't want to lose train of thought.
No,
because and Mr. Fowler, Director Fowler can correct me if I'm wrong, because most of the times when it's elevated to us is after it's been approved by a neighborhood association. We never see it on the front end that the request is coming. It's always something that we get from a CRR that says, hey, this neighborhood wants us to install or look into speed humps. And
So the current process is wide open to anybody. And so when we've had, churches and businesses, all kinds of people submit requests, and they're not invalid requests, but they come from just all directions. That's how we've quickly gotten to 800 requests. But we want to move towards the neighborhood model.
You said you're going to stop accepting requests. So what are your blackout dates of accepting requests?
We probably will go back about 2 weeks in the past from today and say, hey, thank you for your submission. We've received, this many requests. We're going to pause and please coordinate with your neighborhood officers on your request, and we're going to be sharing more information with them about how to submit those requests. So probably about 2 weeks prior to today.
Okay, so for like as you know, in Crestline, because there's so many emails about that street, they're all planning to go vote on it this upcoming neighborhood meeting, which is in 3 weeks, I guess. So what's going to be communicated?
So I think what we are going to ask of them is, and we're going to communicate this to the neighborhood officers as well. And, but what would be asked of them is to say, you know, here's a list of all the requests we have for your neighborhood. What we would like is for y'all to identify your top priority out of that list.
So you'll provide them a list?
I think we're going to have to, yes.
Okay. Can I be, or will you include, will y'all include India?
No,
So
no,
we
we'll
know
definitely-
where I'm walking into?
No, we will definitely do it, not just for your district, but for all districts, so they can have visibility on it, because, of course, I think the policy even also state that the city will match, so we need buy-in from everybody, even if a council wants to commit to whatever, you know.
Not worried about that part. I'm worried about the
Still.
part where they're all planning, they've been talking about this vote, they're all gonna have a vote in 3 weeks, and,
We got you.
thank you.
One of the questions that I have is, when you first came to the city, I remember one of the issues that we, were kind of dealing with was that there wasn't great communication between, the transportation department and the police department in terms of crash data. So, you know, one of the things that, in addition to just speeding, you know, traffic calming, you know, can also be used to impact, you know, to make the road more safe, in terms of crashes. So, is that situation resolved? Do you guys have good visibility on, you know, where problem spots are around the city in terms of crash incidents?
We're probably not where we want to be, but 2 points on that. So one is anytime that we want to investigate a certain location, it comes up all the time where there's concerns about a certain location and safety. We partner with the police department on those locations. So an example that we investigated is over by it's 3rd Avenue South by Iron Tribe right there. So we did a whole big investigation there, but we've done that on many sites across the city. So on a case-by-case basis, we have a very great line of communication with the police department. They're very good partners for us. We do not proactively look at all the crashes across the city. So we don't have that quite yet. But a second point is that the Regional Planning Commission did a region-wide safety analysis with all of the different municipalities' data and gave us a list of hotspots, and they have identified high crash networks. So we've got a list of those locations within the city, and then kind of some narrowed down senses of where some of the most problematic intersections are. So we're not quite there yet in terms of within our department regularly looking citywide at all the crash data, but we've certainly gotten a lot of what we need to. So.
Okay. Other questions? Counselor Abbott?
Thank you. Thank you for this overview. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate those speed humps on 16th Avenue South. They make me smile every time I see people having to slow down from 50 miles an hour down to 10. But I did want to ask, because most of our city streets, excuse me, have signage that says 30 miles per hour. And if you hit a speed cushion at 30 miles an hour, well, it's going to jiggle your teeth. So, do we have any plans for ever changing out our signage to be a little more reasonable? You know, like we have signs in places like you're coming to a sharp curve and the curve says 15 miles an hour, and 30 feet away there's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. And you're like, that isn't going to work. You know, they're going to go on over the cliff. So the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on the streets, I just was wondering if we could slow it down.
It's a great question. Some cities have done that citywide, but it comes with some trade-offs. And long-term, my objective would be to get on, all of our residential streets a speed lower than 30 miles an hour. If we just lower the speed limit, that only actually affects average speeds just slightly, by a mile per hour or two, but it doesn't affect it by 5 miles per hour, because by and large, we kind of drive the speed that we feel comfortable driving. And a lot of our streets over the years have been designed to feel kind of comfortable at, speeds greater than 25 miles per hour. And so I think the way that we will need to responsibly lower the speeds is through interventions like speed cushions and other design tools, so that we're not just lowering the speed limit itself, but we're actually putting in place things that affect driver behavior along with that. Maybe one day we will be to a place where just kind of blanket citywide, we can comfortably say, 25 miles per hour or even 20 miles an hour. But I think we've got to put in a lot more interventions first before we do that.
Okay. Always stop signs. Y'all have installed a whole lot of always stop signs in 5 Point South neighborhood. And the thing that I've noticed is that people don't stop at them. They just drive right through. So what is the fix for that, besides having a policeman sitting at every intersection? Because it's scary. They don't stop. And old fogies like me who actually think that you're supposed to stop at a stop sign, they'll run right up your tailpipe.
That's right. So enforcement is part of it, but what we've also found, similar to the speed question, is when we install a stop sign, sometimes they work a lot better if they're done in conjunction with speed cushions nearby. So as an example, in I think it's the Forest Park neighborhood on 4th Avenue South, they were requesting a stop sign at the top of the hill as you're going up the hill out of town, and we had put a stop sign at another block, but then having 2 in a row, we felt strongly that was going to be too much, but there were some crashes there. But the way that I think we got comfortable with the idea of stop signs there was in conjunction with speed cushions, and so I think the two of those things kind of work together. So there's a lot of judgment in that. I don't know that there's a magic formula for that, but a lot of times I think design characteristics play a role in compliance with stop signs and yield signs as well. So it's just something that we try to be conscious of. And again, that is why we deny more requests for stop signs than we approve. So.
Okay, and a question about the distance. Now, this is kind of related to the stop sign thing. How far from an intersection should parking begin? I've always heard 25 feet from an intersection, but where do you measure from? The center of the intersection or the edges?
I think we're, I don't want to make something up, so there's a hard and fast rule. I will say that citywide, and I think cities everywhere have probably had this dilemma. We have not held to that, and that's not just since I've been here, but just for a long, long time. There's been kind of parking, there's even some intersections where parking is in the intersection. So there's a lot of different circumstances that go along with that. Engineering judgment is allowed, so I don't want to make up the threshold number that's recommended, but I think it is something like 20, 25 feet.
Okay, so if vehicles park so close to the intersection that people can't see oncoming traffic, do you do anything about that? Or since people have been allowing it all these years, it's just acceptable?
If there is a sight distance problem, then we would like to know about it, and we can and do things about it. There's a lot of context that goes into that. So, for example, an intersection that is not stop controlled probably gives us a little more concern than an intersection that is stop controlled, because if somebody's supposed to stop, in theory they could look around a little bit more. But so there's a lot of context that goes into that. We have and are going to do more of what we call daylighting of intersections, so holding back a little bit of space between where the last car is parked and that corner. I think one of the challenges there, as we all know, is going to be enforcement of that. And so we will probably, going forward, use a little bit more flex posts and bollards that kind of force people back, but that brings a maintenance burden as well. So we do intend to try to daylight more intersections.
Good. How does your department prefer that those be reported? 311 or?
Yeah, I would say 311. We do read those requests. We obviously get a ton of those requests, but we absolutely do read those, and we do intend to work on intersection sight distance more and more going forward.
Well, the UAB Police Department fixed it for themselves. They have all these cones, and they just put them out there so that people can't park close to their driveway entrances and in front of the fire hydrants. But the city of Birmingham probably doesn't own that many cones. And they'd probably disappear if we did.
That is where we would get into using flex posts, and I think those are an important tool. But I think we do have just a limited staff budget for being able to maintain a whole bunch of new devices. So we were trying to be a little bit judicious with where we install those. But that would be the best solution, would be like flex posts, which are attached to the ground.
Okay, my only other thing is a suggestion. When you send your people out, send them in cars, not SUVs, because if you're in a car, you're down low. And if you're in an SUV, you can see right over the top of everything and it doesn't bother you. But if you're at an intersection without any controls and you have to pull your car halfway out into the intersection to see if anyone's going to hit you, then you're already in trouble. But if you're in, I used to have an SUV and I loved it, but it made me tall. And I could see over everybody else, and so nothing bothered me. But now that I'm in a hybrid and I'm short, it's dangerous.
Noted.
Thank you.
Question about the urban SDK capacity. So it's, you talked specifically about monitoring speeds. Could it also potentially have the ability to detect when people aren't stopping at stop signs?
I don't think so. Let me see. Yeah, we haven't been made aware of that, but we can ask that question.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Fowler? Council Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick one, I am excited to see some of these, policy reform recommendations. I know we've had a lot of conversation over the years around speed cushions, and we have made a lot of progress in terms of just standing this whole program up. So I do think kind of funneling everything through the neighborhoods, kind of having official votes on things will at least, make people take that step of presenting it and the why. And we all know kind of what's being requested and where that is. I am interested in having the updated list of what's already been requested. And then two, on pausing request, I think that's fine. I think you need to go ahead and set a date where you'll start taking them again, whether that's like January 1, whatever, but setting some kind of expectation of, being able to take them again. And I think kind of going through the neighborhood will go a long way in reducing those requests as well. Kind of separately, do you have a person in DOT that's responsible for signage?
We have a number of staff that deal with aspects of signage, yes.
Okay. If you had to say one person, who would you say?
James Fowler. Chaz, Camila Gray Lewis.
Man of many hats. All right. Lastly, in terms of like the contractors, what do you think the capacity is, like on a 12-month period of how many could be installed using contractors?
That's a good question. So what we've found is that, the process has a lot of steps. There will still be plenty of process because we've got to review with the fire department and we got to review, make sure the funding's there and go through the neighborhoods. There's still going to be plenty of process. But what we found is that the bottleneck has really been getting through the process, which again, getting petitions returned and getting the funding in place, all those things. So we have not found the capacity for the contractors, but I guess in theory, there's not a limit to, how many we could do, so. We are preparing, though, another batch of 10 streets that we can add on to our current contract right now, so. And then the intent would be to then bid out, a bigger future package.
Okay, yeah, so that was the other thing. I think you did the 10, maybe about a month ago or so, you bid it up. I think we had a high-level conversation about it then, but the idea of just doing, a bid where you're doing some unit pricing, so you basically have a list of contractors that you can pull from without having to go through that bid process every time. But I'll sit that there for the gentleman to my right.
No, it's just kind of piggyback on that. I think the installation part is not the most time-consuming part of the whole street calming effort. James can kind of speak to like the whole investigation and making sure that we get the right type of street calming on the particular street. It's the one that is more time-sensitive or time-consuming versus the installation part. Of course, we'd love to have contractors come in and just do it after we do all the investigation work and all our analysis. But I think we have a small team internally that does installation, so that's why we try to speed it up. But again, he can speak towards the actual efforts of trying to make sure that we do proper analysis on different streets to make sure we put the right street calming effort into that street. And if it's a stop sign, if it's a speed hump, or if it's a flashing light, James, can you speak to that just a little bit more?
Yeah, no, that's well said. When we first got started, one of our bottlenecks was installations because we were using our striping and signage crew to do that. Since we've moved to this model, it looks like we can scale that up pretty quickly, kind of as needed. And the recommendation about just a unit price is noted, so that's not a bad recommendation. I think as we scale up from where we are today, probably the process will be kind of the, I don't want to say bottleneck, but that'll be the limiting factor. And I'm interested to see with these reforms, kind of how that shifts where in the process the bottlenecks are. So for instance, the speed cushions and the petitions and the data collection were some of our biggest bottlenecks before, but now that with these policy reforms, that'll probably shift somewhere else. So I'm interested to see, just as we continue to grow, we see different things. So that's right. Oh, one other note on that, I would say there is a benefit to not expanding too quickly, because as we install these, they take a lot of expense to install. We learn a lot. Every street that we do, every time that we do this, we learn a lot, and our fire department learns a lot as well. So, I'd say there is a little bit of a benefit to not going too fast with all of this. So.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of, there's other programs we have where we have a application window. So you may have a 60, 90-day application window for the year and give yourself the rest of the year to clear the log. But just thinking out loud, I'll kick it back to you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. James, what's the plan to get the message out to the community requesting that they need to go to the neighborhood association to discuss speed cushions? Because most people, we get bombarded a lot about that.
I believe that. So following this meeting, I think what we're going to do is have a landing page on our website. We're going to work with the community resource officers to get the information out to neighborhoods and officers. And then on 311, we're going to send, notice back to the requesters that, hey, thank you for your submission. This is our process going forward. Direct them to the website, direct them to their neighborhood. And we may work with Rick Journey, see if there are other appropriate places to let people know as well.
Okay. Because I know I've gotten a PIO team to kind of replicate, like what's on the website is, one page or informational sheet to take to neighborhood meetings and just really just thinking about how do we clearly get the message out to those who do not, attend neighborhood meetings. So I know quite a bit of us do newsletters, so, I guess once you guys, I would like to have, once you guys put it on the website, get PIO to replicate, something like that and put it in a newsletter and continue to take the information to, neighborhood meetings.
Do that?
Thank
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
James, appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, so the working group that includes the fire department and police department, PEP, how often is the working group meeting to review the request?
It varies, just based on kind of where we're at in the process, but anywhere between kind of monthly to every few weeks, just depending. We've also used that same group for reviewing, like as we're resurfacing, reviewing striping plans and things like that, just other changes that are being made. So I'd say it varies, but I would say the longest we would like to go is monthly.
Okay. And when those meetings occur, you guys are, the working group is looking at multiple sites that have requested traffic calming to try and batch the work, okay?
That's correct.
So, based on your experience and now with, getting some, third-party contractors coming in to assist with the traffic engineering part of the process, and noting that we have 800 requests in queue, what kind of timeline are we on in terms of, getting to a point where there's a reasonable backlog versus, many hundreds?
That's a great question. And I'll answer it two ways. So first, we've gone over a century without this program, and so we have hundreds, if not thousands, of streets where people might like to see traffic calming. So we've got a lot of catching up to do, I would say. But the second way I would answer that is in talking with the city of Memphis, who I think we've kind of most closely modeled our program after. They've been doing this for a number of years. They, I think, invest $2 million a year in their traffic calming program, pretty substantial. And they still have about a 2-year process for when they receive the request and move it through their system to installation. Still takes about 2 years. So that's a process. I mean, and it is a, I'm not gonna say major, but it is a significant intervention on a street that affects a lot of stakeholders. So unfortunately, I don't think it can be super, super fast, so.
Okay. So you don't know. All right. Next question is, based on what I've read about traffic calming, another consideration to devices that are used physically in the street is using street trees or other, plantings to narrow, the feel of the street. So are street trees part of the conversation, or, could they eventually, be part of the conversation?
Great question. So currently, I would say indirectly they are a part of the conversation. We do not take a traffic calming case and then, currently recommend street trees. We could start considering that. However, in all the streetscape projects that we do, and including partnership projects like with UAB Live Health Smart, we have been partner to planting a lot of trees citywide, and I agree, in general, creating that sense of enclosure does cause us, as humans to slow down a little bit. So I think that is part of it, and I think when we get an adopted tree ordinance, that'll even be a more kind of specific part of it, so.
Okay.
It's coming, it's coming.
Oh, sorry.
It's coming, it's coming.
All right. Councilor Woods, you have another question?
Thank you. So like, I know a couple of spots in my district, we have like an issue of like cut through traffic, things like that. Would, I guess, street trees, but just natural, basically closing off certain sections. Is that something that, is like a consideration, for DOT as a solution, for some of those like neighborhoods that just get a ton of like, if you think like Edwards Lake Road, coming off that road, Pine Tree's kind of that main cut through, but then some of these other neighborhood streets get cut through, like Stonehenge, people cut through there. There are some, and I think some of these roads used to be, they were opened up at some point, but they weren't always cut throughs. So throwing that out, and then lastly, kind of in line with the Edwards Lake Road project, would you be able to like share some data around accident data, specifically around that street, kind of leading up to, because that's going to be going from, I think, 3 lanes to 2 lanes. And so would be interested in having some data as we kind of take that to the public around, what that looks like.
Yes, we can do that. I'll ask Colin Alexander to follow up through Government Affairs with some data on Edwards Lake Road, but we should have some traffic data for that. Regarding blocking off streets, I think that's a conversation we probably want to open up very, very slowly. And we've begun that, quite frankly, with the Peace Lake Initiative. So we approved some of those street blockages today. So that's kind of an early test, and I think we'll learn, continue to learn a lot from that. And then also, similarly, the 20th Avenue South discussion that we've had, if that moves forward, then we'll learn a lot from that as well. But everybody is cut through traffic for somebody, so it's a tricky conversation. Not opposed to looking at that more and more in the future, but I think it's something we have to walk very carefully with our partners in the fire department.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Councilor Abbott.
Just 2 more questions. Okay, if people, like residents, want to pay the half that the neighborhood would pay, like if the neighborhood says, well, we've only got $5,000 left and we don't want to spend it on speed control, can residents pay the other half?
So that is how we did the very first case in the city.
Carlisle Road.
So, yeah, there was no budget at that time, so that was the first one that we did, because the residents paid.
Yeah, but is that an option if people are very inspired over having speed controls?
I think so, yes, ma'am.
It'd be cash, not checks. They might
No,
bounce.
yeah, just a check, and they can work with BDOT on, we'll put it in the right account for it.
Yeah, okay, and the other question is, street trees do slow down traffic because people perceive that the street is narrower, but another thing is, marked off parking spaces also make the street seem narrower, as do bicycle lanes, and so is there any intention, like when y'all get caught up with street striping, that y'all can do some of that? Because around all of our, like, hospitals and schools, there are people parked all over everything. I mean, it's just a big sloppy mess. And possibly, if there were parking spaces marked on the pavement, people would at least know where they might leave their car legally.
Yeah, I don't want to overpromise, just because that's the more we stripe, the more we have to maintain, and so we have to balance that with capacity. But we do, in targeted areas, want to do that more. So, for example, if there's a problem around, a hospital, that's a pretty good option for us. And there are places in neighborhoods, either around schools or around parks, where we've done some kind of specific striping. But it's hard to do that at too big of a scale citywide, just because that's, one more thing that is a maintenance item, so.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we could contract that out too.
Okay. Thank you, Director Fowler. Appreciate the update. Oh, yes, and you have another item, a public engagement item for a project.
And it's just an announcement, and it's really quick. And one more item on traffic calming that I want to clarify. So in my role, I guess I wear two hats. So director of the department, but also city traffic engineer. And I do want to clarify that city traffic engineer reserves the right to kind of maneuver speed cushion priorities and things as needed. And that's important because the speed cushions can be an important safety item. And so as an example, we had a street where a tragic incident occurred and we had not received the petition back yet, even though that was a street in consideration. So we went ahead and didn't ask for funding and didn't ask for the petition and just went ahead with the installation. So and other examples might be partnerships with, the UAB Live Health Smart initiative or other things where other partners are investing. We may choose to kind of invest along with them. So there's all sorts of different situations. So, we may move things around a little bit, but as much as possible, we try to stick to what's outlined in this memorandum.
Councilor Smitherman.
And, Director Fowler, could you just give us just like a heads up when that happens in the neighborhood? Because that has happened like in Titusville, and I kind of got some heat for it because they were like, hey, how did these speed bumps come about? And the UAB told me just to give us the heads up, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But those in particular by Memorial Park have been super helpful though.
Okay. All right, you want to tell us about this A-Trip 2 project?
I do, and this is just a requirement of the A-Trip 2 program that we notify the city council. A-Trip 2 is a grant, you may not remember it, but a while back we approved to apply for a grant. This is in relation to the new Coca-Cola headquarters, actually. The A-Trip 2 program is an ALDOT program, so north of 2059, that section north of 2059 is actually a state route. And so we applied for a grant, and what that will do is it allows us, with state money, to install a new traffic signal at the off-ramp there. It's currently not signalized north of the interstate, so that'll help with the construction of that new Coca-Cola facility. And also there will be a barrier constructed in the southbound direction that reduces the amount of weaving because there's a number of lanes. I think 2 lanes get onto the interstate in the southbound direction this is Tallapoosa, right there. And so the barrier will reduce how much weaving occurs there, which helps a lot with the trucks that are also on that road. So it helps resolve a safety concern.
Okay. This project doesn't include a southbound, an exit for 40th Street, basically. Yeah, I mean, I know that's something that's been brought up from time to time.
It does not include any modifications to the exits other than if you're going the northeast bound on the interstate and you get off the interstate and you loop around that ramp and when it lands and intersects with Tallapoosa, that's the intersection that we're signalizing, but
Okay.
no other access modifications.
Got it. Okay, thank you for the notification. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on. We asked Ms. Carolyn Douglas from the Land Bank Authority to come and provide an update. I know personally for me it's been a minute since we've gotten any metrics from the Land Bank Authority, so Ms. Douglas.
Yes, good afternoon, Council President O'Quinn and city councilors. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of our governing board, our chairman, Dr. Lonnie Hannon, and our staff. I was asked to provide some data about the number of properties that we own, the number of properties that we've sold, and also an update on the sale process. Before I get there, I just wanted to give you a note on 3 important things. Land banking is not just holding property for the long term. Land banks are created by state legislation. Local authorities are authorized, so counties and cities can establish a land bank. Now, a city or a county that has more than 100 properties can establish a local land bank. If a city needs a land bank's assistance but doesn't have enough properties to establish their own, they can work with an established land bank. The purpose of this is because we know that every dilapidated structure, every abandoned property, every overgrown property is not land bank eligible. To be land bank eligible, you have to be the property has to be at least 3 years behind in property taxes. And for our purposes, it needs to be at the State Department of Revenue. As you may know, it may have been 2021 when the county elected to keep those properties that are tax delinquent on their books. So they went from a tax deed to a tax lien sale. So properties that are just becoming tax delinquent remain at the county level. They do not go to the state, but we are hoping that state legislation, we can propose some amendments that can increase our access to those properties. Second, your Birmingham Land Bank is leading. We're leading nationally and we're leading in the state. So this month I was invited to speak at a National Land Bank Network conference in Detroit. And I spoke with other women who were executives and involved in developing properties from Minnesota and Michigan. So Birmingham was on that national stage talking about our accelerated home ownership program, which we have established and begun in Fountain Heights. In Alabama, the Birmingham Land Bank was the first. There are 5 land banks in Alabama. There is Birmingham. Then after Birmingham came Gadsden. After that, the Fairfield Land Bank Authority was established, followed by Bessemer, and then our youngest land bank is the City of Enterprise. City of Enterprise invited me to come talk to them about how Birmingham is operating. So we are leading the way, but we're also becoming a benchmark for a lot of the things that we do here in Birmingham, so you should be very proud about that. Going straight into the data, I was asked to share how many properties do we own. The Birmingham Land Bank now has over 1,700 properties that we either own or have a tax deed for. What's important about that is that the governing board has authorized us to request as many, any and all delinquent properties that meet our eligibility criteria within the city limits. What that does in the short term is make properties available for development, renovation, new construction. What that does in the long term is that we can assemble properties for larger projects. We can receive properties from private entities through a donation, or individuals can donate their properties. Now, those donations have to be considered and also formally accepted by the board. But we can also purchase properties on the open market or request properties from the state of Alabama. Right now, as I mentioned, we cannot access properties at the county level unless we pay those delinquent taxes, which we are not required to pay once we request them from the state level, and that's legislation. Not because I want to, but I believe the state understood there's a value in making properties available to a land bank that'll take a property that's not marketable, meaning it's got delinquencies, may have an old mortgage, and those delinquencies outweigh or are more than the property value. That's where land banks can step in and start selling those properties for less than market value. The number of properties we sold. On your handout, those properties are categorized by program, and then they're categorized by type. Who is the purchaser, or what program did we sell that property through? So in total, we've sold 683 properties. Divided by program, the most popular program to date is the Clear Title Ownership Program. That takes about almost 70% of our sales goes through that program. Then the next is the lot lease program. Just to give you a brief difference between the programs, you can lease a vacant lot. You cannot lease a home or a structure. One thing I failed to mention is land banks can reach commercial properties and residential properties. So if you are a homeowner and you live next to a vacant lot, you can lease that lot. That program is our second highest program in demand. What's amazing about that is nonprofits can take advantage of that program and churches can take advantage of that program. And we've seen a little bit of both, residents, nonprofits, and churches. I really think this is low-hanging fruit, especially for churches who live on a block or live in an area with a lot of vacant properties. Then we have our Rehab Ready. The only difference between Rehab Ready and Clear Title is Rehab Ready is ready to purchase today. Titles have already been cleared. All we need is a buyer. Clear title will take a little more time. So one of the things I've noticed is when there was a conversation or maybe even a concern about the time the process is taking, many times it was because they picked a program that was going through a court process. And that allows a prior owner or a family who wants to redeem the opportunity to do that. But if time is of the essence, I always recommend the Rehab Ready or Shovel Ready program. So for that first block of data on how our programs rank, Clear Title is 70% of what we sell. Then if we just look at who are we selling it to, many times it's been said that we sell more to organizations than individuals, but the data shows that's not the case. About 56% of properties are sold to individuals. We then broke that down between what kind of properties were sold. Does it have a structure? Is it a vacant lot? And 67% of what has been sold are vacant lots. We have many vacant lots. Those are opportunities for new construction, but I do believe that not every vacant lot requires a home or needs a home. It can be green space. It can be an urban garden. I have said that there are 99 neighborhoods. Wouldn't it be amazing to have 99 gardens, 99 urban gardens, so that we will not have a food desert, at least to some degree. The next chart that you have is catalytic developments. These are property projects, 3 or more properties. So we have named for you the developer who came to the land bank looking for an assemblage of properties or a bundle of properties. And the total number that are in those developments are 218. These projects take a bit more time because many times it involves a big number of property and it involves a much larger plan. What you also asked me to do is update you on our sales process. How does that even work? How does it start? How does the public get involved? So it starts with an interest form, and your interest form is online. Everything is online. We've updated our website, trying to make it more user-friendly, updated our property data system so you can search by neighborhood, you can search by council district. So it starts with the interest form. Our queue is open right now, and it'll stay open until November. Once you submit your interest form, we're looking for you as a person, are you eligible, and is the property you want eligible? Once we determine that, we invite you to orientation or we'll explain the eligibility issue if there is one. Once we finish orientation, we open up the application. The application is more robust than the interest form. We are providing a lot of information ahead of time because some of the feedback I received was, Ms. Caroline, I would have done more or I would have done better had I known certain things up front. So instead of letting you apply first, we want to give you all the information first so you can make an informed decision. Once you submit your application, the staff will review it and then forward it on to the board for approval. If it's approved, then the property contract is signed, earnest money is deposited, and then you have another opportunity to inspect the property. And then once you inspect that property, you'll fill out your maintenance plan. You'll let us know who you're working with. We always advise if you're not living in the home or buying the home for yourself, a licensed contractor is what you need. And then once that contract is signed, depending on what program it's in, it either goes then through the court process or we prepare it for closing. What we're doing now is hosting a series of events called Land Bank Live. We're going through each of these steps virtually. We're going to show you, we'll demonstrate it online, and we're going to take you step by step, and it starts this Friday. So this Friday, we're online, we're live. We're talking about how to find a property using our data system. I would love for your staff to attend virtually, tell your residents to do it as well, because we want to walk them through it. And we also want to go through how to submit your interest form. That's this Friday. Then the next Friday, we're going to talk about the steps to filling out your application. If you decide to advance, this is how you fill out your application. Then the last one will be the following Friday on what happens next. This is our big Q&A. Give us your questions, and we'll answer every question that we receive. So to date, your Birmingham Land Bank is advising other land banks in Texas. We're advising land banks in the nation. Whoever calls me for advice, I'll talk to them. I'll let them know how we're working and what we're doing. And so that is all for what I've presented to you, and I am open for questions.
So do we still have the side lot program? Is that still part of the land bank?
It is. Yes, it is. We updated our policy, so now side lot or adopt a lot, it's all what we call lot lease.
Okay, all right. Counselor Abbott?
Yeah, these programs that you're having online, are they going to be videotaped and made into something that you can put on your website for people to go click on later if they missed it and
Yes.
see how to do all these different steps?
Yes, they will. And how you sign up for them is you'll go to either our Facebook page or our Instagram page and scan that QR code. But let's say you miss it, we will post them on our YouTube channel so you can view it later.
Yeah, because I miss a lot of things when they're available, but it would be great to be able to just go watch it and see what was said. And I know lots of other people that happens to.
On your catalytic developments list, Housing Reinvestment Corporation of America, is that the same organization that I know as Growth?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Could you tell us a little more about ICS Global Pay?
It's a great question. I contacted the business owner for this organization. They purchased property back in 2020. And the reason for the contact is because we were considering repurchasing the properties that they had purchased from us. No development has happened, no updates have been given. What they've explained is that they have a larger plan and they are requesting an additional time. In order for them to do that, I created a process where they will submit their information and will present it to the board. They're expected to come to the board meeting in November to explain what the purpose of their purchase was, what does their development look like, why they have not made any progress. So I would invite members of the council to come to that board meeting.
Okay. Other questions? Councilor Williams?
So how much are we doing in terms of, I think that's what that group is, but like in terms of these larger groups as opposed to like the lot lease or like one-off kind of stuff?
Do you mean how frequent do we enter into catalytic agreements?
Maybe, I don't know if the term catalytic development's the right term, but just, like the only way that I see that we're going to get a population, back to the Snaggletooth type, neighborhoods is by, putting together, 10, 15, 30 lots and letting a developer have at it. I don't know if that's the same thing as catalytic development or not.
Yep, you're on that. Yep, same thing.
But, to me, it seems like it would be a lot more advantageous for us to not worry about side lots as much, not worry about, definitely not someone leasing a lot, and then just have, like, here's 10 lots and 1 square mile, or whatever the thing is, and then putting it out to RFP and see what developers would be willing to do, and maybe what, the city would be willing to help cover in terms of cost of build.
Yes, I think you're hitting a really good point, which is what spawned the Accelerated Homeownership Program. We had over 100 lots next to each other or between homes in one neighborhood. And we noticed that Fountain Heights, being right next to Druid Hills, being close to the city center, walkable distance from the BJCC, it was perfect. What we do believe, and what I do believe, is lot lease also has its place. The reason for that is it's a 2-year maintenance agreement. So some people I've spoken to said, Caroline, why would I pay an amount to maintain a property? Well, because if you want to purchase it one day and you may not have the money up front, you can take that 24-month period and save up that money to purchase that property. It's low-hanging fruit. But to your point, to really fill in our neighborhoods again and build those communities again, catalytic projects are the way to go. So for Fountain Heights, the goal was to sell and build 25 homes to start. We have built 2, we're breaking ground on 1 this fall, and we are set to build another 11. What you said is perfect. We've got 2 builders who are doing this. They build custom homes in the Birmingham area, but they wanted to bring that quality right here to the city. And I think more builders like that are contacting me now. I've got several saying, I can do this as well. We know if we do it right in Fountain Heights, meaning if we stay engaged with the residents, if we understand what their need is, if we build quality homes, and we can do it there, we can do it anywhere. So we're really in a good position to see how we can build out Fountain Heights and then make that available elsewhere.
Okay. Councilor Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to hit back on what Mr. President asked about the ICS Global Pay. Interesting that, so they bought 10 lots
They did,
and set on 10 lots and haven't done anything with it.
correct.
Interesting. So what's the, like if somebody comes and buy this quantity of, lots, and it's interesting, I would like to know, like what's the, like you said, what's the plan of action? Like, is it, if you come and purchase this, like, do they have to come and give you like a full-fledged plan? So are you asking like, because I'm curious to know, like, these people bought these lots, set on the lots with no plan, like you talking about 5 years in the making. Like, and somebody else probably may have been interested in like you said, have come and could have developed. And I think my question is, how do we intercept something like that to keep from happening again? Like, you gotta come with your plan, you gotta come with your finance. I mean, we wanna see your whole robust plan, and you got X amount of time to execute.
That's a great question, Councilor Tate. How we even knew about ICS Global Pay is because it must have been 2022. We have a process that once you complete your development, we will release the land bank's interest. So that means when we sell a property, we are giving you a deed to that property, but we're keeping just a slice of it because we need to guarantee you're going to finish what you start. That year, I had issued less than 20 certificates, but I could see from our data we had sold far more than that. So I requested the board's authorization to pause on selling any more properties because we had to get deep into this data, figure out what's going on, what's completed, what isn't, who needs an extension, what is the status of that property. So because of that effort in 2022 and into 2023, we discovered where those gaps were. To purchase property now from the land bank, you need 3 primary things. You need a plan, which means what is your plan, what is your timeline? You need a contractor who's licensed, and you need to show us that you have the funding to both purchase the property and complete the development. That's what we require. So because of the compliance effort, we now know that ICS Global Pay, and we have some others who have either not responded to our requests, purchased properties back 2020, 2019, 2018. But one thing the Birmingham Land Bank is doing is we are going to steward those properties, and if they do not respond or do not have a plan or do not have funding or have no idea when they're going to finish, we will repurchase that property back from them. We have done it and we will do it again. Yeah.
Please keep me posted on that meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Woods.
Thank you. All right, 2 questions. One is just basically, when you are, I guess, selling these properties initially, is there you mentioned keeping a slice of that. Is there something that allows you to buy that back at the same price that you sold it? Or is that something that has to be negotiated if you decide to buy it back?
It's a great question. First, let me say the land bank desires to help you get to the finish line. We're going to use every tool that we can, whether giving you an extra extension or trying to follow up on your progress, because the buyer has an obligation to let us know where they are too. Repurchase is our last resort. We can't talk, we can't negotiate, we can't figure out what your plan is. There are early contracts that state that we will repurchase the property for what it was sold for. It gives no allowance for expenses. That's why we try not to use that tool. Now, what our contract says is if we cannot meet at a deadline, you don't have resources, nothing's happening, you will come to the closing table and deed it back to the land bank. There's no money exchanged at that time. Then we will turn around and use every effort to resell that property. Once we resell that property, there's a mechanism in the contract that says, okay, we're going to first reimburse you up to the cost, we're going to first reimburse the land bank for every cost it took us to get the property back. That does include attorney's fees. That does include closing fees. And then we will reimburse you up to the cost that you bought the property for. But we do not guarantee expenses. So when we've had to do that, we've done it at least twice. Once we were able to sell that property at a price that allowed us to reimburse the previous owner for the entire purchase price and a portion of the expenses. They didn't like it. I get that. But at the end of the day, we provide you that contract and we help you understand this important thing. The reason you were able to purchase this property and not have to pay for the delinquent taxes, any interest on that delinquency or other mortgages or debts is because the land bank stood in the gap so that you could have that property at the price you paid. So what we want in return is to just finish what you start. But if you cannot, that's the mechanism we have. So to answer your question, earlier contracts do state that we will repurchase it for the purchase price you paid. Our contract now states if we have to repurchase it, you will come to the closing table. No money is exchanged. We will use every effort to sell that property. And once we recoup any money, we will repay ourselves back first, then give you whatever we can or what's left, if there's any money left.
Thank you. Also interested in, I'm not sure, you may have the best metric to explain this, but trying to gauge like the interest that you see. I know you said you got about 1,700 properties, but just kind of gauge like the interest in acquiring the properties that you're seeing. I don't know if the best way to talk about that is like applications filled out or request, but how can you best gauge like the level of interest? Is that going up or down?
The interest is going up. I can say that the Coca-Cola Amphitheater drew a lot of interest for Druid Hills. Other developments, such as homes being renovated or established neighborhoods like Norwood, when we're selling property, those areas will always get interest. What I can do is determine by the number of applications we receive where that interest really lies. But in general, I can tell you the interest is going up. What I would love to see more of is urban agriculture. We would love to see more of that because neighborhoods like Fountain Heights or Bush Hills that have thriving gardens and open up opportunities for young and old to come together and also to improve the health of our residents overall.
I guess in terms of advertising, I know, certain properties may be more desirable than others, but is the advertising forward-facing limited to like the website? Do you do anything, do we ever utilize realtors? Just making sure that, properties are out there in terms of
You ask
coming
a
up
really
when
good
people are searching for things. Yeah.
You ask a really good question. We use our website primarily, but we also hosted 2 events this year. So we advertised for the expo. We invited all of you to the expo, but then we also had an initial expo for just home builders, those communities, based organizations that build, and also for our realtors and brokers. And what we did that first event was, we want to show you what's going on citywide, not just the AHOP program, but we want to showcase City of Birmingham community development projects. We want to showcase Habitat for Humanity projects. We want to showcase Navigate building projects. And so we highlighted those building projects citywide. Then this summer, we held an expo where we partnered with all of those partners and lenders. There were about 20 of us at the Bill Harris Arena, so that we could get the word out even more. But we are also looking to outsource our marketing. So we're looking for a partnership where we can amplify what we're doing so that more people in Birmingham, first of all, in the Birmingham area can be involved. Because we get buyers out of Georgia or out of different states, but we really want our Birmingham residents to take advantage of our programs. So yes, website's primary. We do a lot of in-person engagements, but we are looking to outsource the marketing piece.
Lastly, like, just say, like, in terms of MLS or something like that, being able to have these, is there anything that restricts you from using something like that? I don't know if that would be something where we try to, you know, the land bank has like a direct, you know, membership, or if you work through a third party, but being able to just have that like searchable in the places where people are looking for property and houses comes to mind. But like, so I'm just trying to gauge like what the interest is now in our, you know.
What was the organization you mentioned?
Like the MLS is like what?
Oh, yes, the multiple listing system. I believe access to the multiple listing system requires that you're either a broker, a realtor, but I'll tell you two things we're looking into. We did advertise our Druid Hills homes on Zillow. We just wanted to see. It was no cost to advertise. It seemed pretty straightforward. And we received hundreds of calls, thousands of views. And we honestly know that's a platform that we haven't really utilized. So for those Druid Hills homes, we had 4 of them. We sold 3 out of the 4. The 4th one, the prior owner wanted to redeem. So we count all of it as a win. So platforms like Zillow that don't require that we are realtors or hold a broker's license proved to be effective. So we're planning on doing that again. Our board is also in conversation about bringing on a realtor as part of our team so that we can have that multiple listing MLS access. And so those are in progress, I should say, but we haven't made any final decisions about a realtor joining our team, but we have started using Zillow.
Yeah, like I said, I'd be interested in that, because I think that brings a lot of value in terms of just people seeing it. Because people will search, like, you know, these sites. Zillow's one of the big ones that they'll just look for properties in areas. And
That's right.
it'd be good to kind of have your wares visible.
That's right. We plan to do that for AHOP as well, put those floor plans on Zillow.
Counselor Tate?
Caroline, I just have, now, I know you said, you know, you put the houses on Zillow for Druid Hill, but interesting that the owner came back for redemption. So, and the house had, did they owe back taxes, or what was the deal there?
When it comes to redemption, we are only concerned with back taxes. So let's say you purchased it instead of the owner redeeming it. When the owner redeems, they're only redeeming it for back taxes. If there are any other delinquencies, old mortgages, liens, those remain when the owner redeems. But if you, as a new buyer, purchase it through the land bank, the taxes are gone, extinguished, and so are other encumbrances. But when a prior owner or interested party, so we're talking about the prior owner, children of the prior owner, heirs, or even a mortgage company, when they decide to redeem, that's not something we can refuse. So property rights are very highly protected, and so we will allow them to redeem. There's no telling why many of these properties are lost to taxes. It could be a myriad of reasons. But when a prior owner or interested party comes to redeem, we do walk that redemption through.
And so, we would be curious to know, like, you redeem the property, so are you gonna, I would like to know, like, what's the plan for the property going forth, or will you continue to let the property sit up and, you know, dilapidate? You know, like, what type of, I mean, like, what can be done about, I mean, I probably legally, you can't force somebody to fix up a property.
Well, that's where the ordinances come in.
Yes.
You know, as the legislative body, that's where your ordinances come into play. And it requires them to keep their grass cut, and it requires them to keep their building in a certain condition. So that's what comes into play once an owner redeems. So when the owner redeems, we don't then say, so what is your plan? Though we might be curious about it, now the owner has come back for their property. So what then steps in to regulate their use and maintenance of that property are your local ordinances.
Correct. Okay. I mean, like, that's interesting that somebody would, let a property sit up and it's going up for sale and now you got this interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I believe that we've exhausted our inquiries.
Thank you. Council President O'Quinn, I would love to do a workshop in future for all of our city councilors so we can drill down into what's available in your district. We can drill down to what projects may benefit your district, but that is something I will work on through government affairs.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have requested an update on city-involved litigation from the Office of the City Attorney.
Thank you, President O'Quinn. Before we go into that, I want to acknowledge I have my Chief of Litigation Division, Joseph Abrams, present, and we have a great update to tell you about DNAT. So we have the honor of presenting in New Orleans to the International Municipal Lawyers Association. So we will be presenting what the city of Birmingham is doing right with DNAT. And this will not be just local municipalities, these will be municipalities across the world. So I wanted to give you all that great update. And thank you for telling your citizens to continue to engage and email us at problemproperty@birminghamal.gov. Now, I would like to recommend we go into executive session to discuss several pending litigation matters pursuant to Section 3625A 7A3.
Motion for executive session.
Second.
All right, so we will go into executive session in conference rooms D and E, and we'll reconvene at the call of the chair. Oh, do we need a roll call vote on the executive session? Okay. All right, so let's redo the vote. I'll call the roll. Councilor Woods. Aye. Councilor Tate. Aye. Councilor Abbott. Aye. Councilor Smithman. Aye. Councilor O'Quinn. Aye. So it's unanimous. We'll go into executive session and reconvene at the call of the chair. We are in recess. All right, we will briefly reconvene our special call committee of the whole. I'll call the roll. Counselor Woods. Counselor Tate. Counselor Abbott. Counselor Smitherman. Here. All right, Counselor O'Quinn, present. So the meeting is reconvened. Now we need a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.